Good viewer, you are watching Xirtus. This is because Xirtus makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch Xirtus for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to Xirtus, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about Xirtus. Your friends will come to like Xirtus, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to Xirtus. See, that was easy.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarian.
Recent Tartarian. Recent Tartarian. Tartarian. Recent Tartarian.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarian.
Oh yeah. What's up? How's it going?
Hey, welcome
Got-
everyone.
Let us know if our audio is okay, because we did some audio changes in the back, so
Yes.
hopefully it works. All right. How you been? What you been up to?
Thanks. Well, I'm fine, I guess. And I never know what to say, Doing a bit of research, doing some interviews, something along those lines. Everything
That's
cool.
true. Before we start too deep, actually, we should talk about that. You've been doing some pretty cool interviews. I don't know if anyone's seen your most recent David Ewing Jr. series, but you've got a whole bunch of things about Palestine and Rome and Israel that are really interesting and go in depth. Maybe you want to comment on some of the flavors.
Yeah, so I mean, of course, by now it's a huge range of videos, and I have to say initially, Andreas, I know David through you because you brought him on once on a Team Rabbit Hole show, and I think David just randomly said something along the lines of, "Oh, the pyramids in Giza, they are faked up," or something like this, and I was like, "Oh, this is something I never heard before. We gotta investigate and gotta learn more." And then, that's why basically on those presentations, I mainly just let David talk without commenting too much, unless maybe, making a joke or something, because I just, want to collect all the elements, all the perspectives of what he's found out. And of course, it's a lot, because we're not just talking about, one particular event, but
Ooh, they
many.
put a little warning on yours thing. May
Right.
contain graphic, violent imagery.
So
Wow.
just to explain, because it is
Oh,
about
right.
so many different topics, that's why, each of these presentations is easily 2 hours, only trying to outlay one particular topic. So to anyone interested in it, I can only say it takes a little bit of endurance, let's say, to be able to really get into it. But best is if you already know some stuff, for example, from Andreas, then of course it's easier, to start grasping it. And I think some of the interviews that you actually did with him may be some of the best starting points. Also because you do provide more context. But eventually we'll see. I think next year Sean Hibbeler will make a documentary where David Ewing Jr. will be integrated as well. So I'm sure there, an even more broader picture will be drawn. And eventually, I'm trying to also be able to create some kind of a summation of what David presented so far, or at least present some of the core points in a really concise fashion. That's what I'd like to do. If anybody wants to help or has insights, write me on the Xirtus Discord or something like that. Accepting any and all ideas, and we're also in the small chat group I have discussing those ideas right now to see how we can condense it down. But otherwise, probably a really good starting point actually is the one you just showed, the Jesuit interview, or any of the interviews that you did with him, because they're more like, starting with the basics.
You don't have your Telegram link on the Comency website yet?
No, I do have if on the bottom left, this is my Telegram on the very
Oh,
left.
boom,
Yes.
yeah. And
They
you can
can
also
contact
Telegram.
they can contact me, and then I can add anyone to the group who wants to, participate in that effort, let's say.
That is slick right there, actually. I'm glad you've got that. Okay. But yeah, you guys really should check out these videos, and, Ralph's a decidedly better interviewer than I am for the
Well, in this
aforementioned
case, because
reasoning.
David obviously has his own, presentation style and his own things in mind. I'm just not interrupting as much as possible, because again,
Yeah.
it's just about getting a different perspective, no matter how different it may be. But when you go through it, and because I talk with friends, some friends are saying, "Oh, it's amazing." Some friends are saying, "Oh, what is this? I cannot properly follow. What is happening?" All I can say
Jim.
is so far from all the comments that I've got, I have not really found, let's say, a proper, well-founded critique. Most of the comments that are negative are actually something along the lines of, credibility assassination and stuff like that, but rarely actually discussing the claims, which is what I think proper research should be about. So that's why I'm just looking forward that these interviews and this information gets at least some more exposure. So, more very qualified and honest individuals can comment and critique and, find discrepancies and so on. Because sometimes I'm disappointed when these comments come negatively, but these lowball ideas like, oh, he's saying yes so often. That's a brainwashing technique. And I'm like, wow, like,
I mean,
serious.
You ever heard a
Serious?
guy from Manchester talk? Yeah, there's a thing that happens also where people learn to speak away. I get that. I mean, I don't know. It's funny because he's just trying to get out like his narrative so that people can hear it. So it's a good thing that you're doing that. You're making it available in the most complete, without interruption sense. Like I said, I think it's a better interview than I've done in a sense. I also agree with you that if you haven't seen any of it, it's probably good to watch my earlier interviews as well. But these are great, and they go into depth, and they're clean. So definitely check them out. People should be watching all of these if they're interested in David Ewing Jr.'s chronology of history and what happened in the Middle East. Is a
And I think
hypothesis.
the most important idea, which is, I guess, something in an abstract sense many people could agree upon, just explaining in more detail, and as far as possible, he's just showing proof in terms of the coding and in terms of the relationships and obvious ideas happening in history, just to get a better understanding of how, in a very artificial way, let's say different sects, today we call them religions, or organized religions, different nation states, different cultures are being artificially created, because if you would take a step back and see it more from a, let's say, multi-generational perspective, yeah, then of course I will be setting up, or I will be traumatizing certain groups of people today, create certain animosities, because I will know in 30 years time, in 20 years time, they will be politically useful on the world stage, or they will have a certain impetus, which, because I know it beforehand, I can then use for my further, advancing of control. And at least the way David explains it, and it makes sense to me, is that one of the big battlefields simply is the idea of getting everyone registered. Get everyone a social security number, a passport, a birth certificate, which still is not all too common everywhere, like in the West. And then eventually, of course, I'm not mentioning it now, but everyone knows the most famous conspiracy theory that no one said would ever happen. And, Bill Gates has been joking about
Spice
it or
Girls were
whatever.
gonna make a movie.
Exactly.
Sequel?
Just, more control under your skin. Yuval Noah Harari's wet dream. And if you see it from that point of view, it also makes sense that, you artificially create these groups, also because you can always deflect responsibility for any, destruction, war, and conflict that is happening. You can say, oh, of course, this culture doesn't like that culture, but you're never mentioning that you were the force who was brainwashing them to hate each other and potentially staging attacks against each other and all of that. And it appears that this is not something so recent, with the documented and maybe even proven cases, some may know, but this may have been going on for quite some time in history. And if that is the case, well, that, I guess, puts another spin on, on the perspective of what's going on.
Dude, I was just thinking about tattoos because you sent me something earlier about Russell Brand and being rebranded. And we'll get into that in a second. But I was just remembering, there was a time when MTV, which was this, Tavistock broadcast that had as much sway as Elvis in a sense across the youth and formulated people's ideas. Every rock star would be getting a tattoo as they were talking to you. They were being interviewed and getting a tattoo, or on their way to get a tattoo and then covered in tattoos. And it's just crazy to think how are these people still completely, I guess, completely covered in tattoos, but such an easy way to get people, if they, if you made this a cultural thing that everyone likes to get tattoos, it becomes way easier to put anything underneath people's skin, right?
Oh, you're just normalizing this idea. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm not saying that these tattoos are functional like that,
And
but
there is
graphene tattoos
there's a
are
very
in the future.
yes, there's a very interesting, I forgot the exact name. I believe it's if I put it correctly, individual that transitioned their sex, but now, or their gender, but now they revert it or they don't agree with it anymore or something like that. And anyhow, what they're explaining is that what in the 90s were like the emos and the goths or something, and maybe having piercing and tattoos, the next level of that is simply having a sex change. And unfortunately, it kind of makes sense. Because then, when I was in high school or something, they were saying like, oh, don't cut your wrist or something. And then we were joking about it and we're like, well, cutting your
Kind of like
wrists
my wrist. Yeah, I
it's
get
more
that.
easily reversible than,
Oh,
doing
I thought
operations
yeah.
like that, So
I thought you just meant compared to my ear. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, these tattoos though, like you sent me an article. Is like this thing here about Russell branded for life. Am I on the right track, or is that not what this is about at all?
this is not necessarily
Oh,
about
okay.
tattoos. This is just to anyone interested in the whole Russell Brand story. We interviewed Occult Priestess on Team Rabbit Hole once. She's often, I think, in the Dark Journalist chat, she does her own stuff. But in any case, I just find it so interesting because she has first-hand experience with this guy. And I'm not saying that he or this story is so important, but just anyone who's interested in the guy or what's going on may want to hear her testimony because it's firsthand. That's all I wanted to say. And of course, here we have 350 views from some actual information and, whatever.
Well, what's this? What's her actual testimony saying? Because it's interesting. I think Russell Brand clearly saw a lot of stuff. Like clearly. And then he did have his tattoo of Katy Perry and him had like a matching like occult tattoo, but then he had it removed and then put like a crucifix over it or something, right? So I found that kind of interesting. Like he's he's really scared of something, right? Like he's got to be trying to stay in the light. And what's this other one he's got? This one, it's like his arm tattoo, Lord make me an instrument of peace, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, he doesn't get. It still got the 33, I think. Though. Well, that's fine. That's fine. Nothing
Right.
That's. I'll take it. But yeah, I don't know. He's got some Sanskrit tattoos too that are probably pretty important mantras and like certain mantras to keep him safe and alive. I have to look into those. This one's pretty interesting. Like his England. Is that, I don't know. Someone who's more British, tell me more about that tattoo. Please do. Because I'd have to just like Jungian archetype it. I don't know which castle it is, or is it Manchester or something?
Looks like a craftsman coat of arms or something.
Yeah, like maybe it's like a guild in Manchester or something. I don't know. West Ham United Lodge. All right, Joe Elwell knows because he's based Joe. That's pretty sweet. Now we know. That could be true. That could be a joke. Let's find out. West Ham United Lodge. Yeah, boom. There it is. West Ham United. Right there. Okay, I'll take it. So he loves football, or it means more, which I think is also the thing. Probably WHU. Maybe there's like a John D thing going on with that one. I don't know. Yeah, with the tattoo thing, I feel like he did tattoos. Obviously, he was afraid of having, or didn't like to have. He uses tattoos like that are magical, right? Like he's using all these symbols, like. He's got like chakra tattoos. He's got this idea of like alignment tattoos. He's got things he's remembering. I don't know.
Well, honestly, without commenting on him individually, or maybe I am, but his case appears to be, how should I say? I mean, who gets to be husband of Katy Perry or something? And now he's a big revolutionary.
A cool rock star guy with a high
yes.
narcissistic temperament, and he's tall. Sometimes being tall gets you far in this world for no reason at all. It's like the tallest nail gets hit by the hammer first. Like the tallest tree gets hit by lightning.
So you're suggesting he got hit by lightning?
Kinda. I mean, like he was like, if you're into things, he's into this stuff. He was into this stuff, you know? That's the thing. Not everybody's so into that stuff. He was kind of like into the rock star thing. And I think that there was a push for, there's this kind of energy that exists in England that people want to be like rock star magicians. What was that show? The Boone, what's the one with the, in Britain? Oh man, I forget. There's a show with like a comedian who looks just like him, but I forget. All these
If I
people that
remember
try.
correctly, just about this video, I believe she was even like called to work with him or something like that, and actually something related to occultism. I don't even remember the
Yeah,
exact
but like
content
how
now,
long
but
ago? How long ago? Like before when he was
oh,
married to Katy Perry, like 20 years ago? What is this?
I don't think you see a picture there on the top right. I don't think it's that long.
Yeah, not that long. I don't know. But still, that could have been when he was married to Katy Perry. I don't know. Many have mentioned predictions. Russell Brand, Space Jesus, our future cult leader. These are things that you would say if you're trying to be a comedian and a rock star. I mean, I think, yeah, I kind of get the feeling he walked into something that was a little more real than he realized, and they probably wanted to, like, sacrifice his family or something. Or probably not, right?
Is his
Never.
family alive? That would be a good hint,
Oh my
actually.
God. Great way to get the show canceled. Let's find out. I do not
Oh
think
no,
Russell
I
Brand killed
just
anybody. I feel like
no.
he would walk
No one
away
is
from that.
suggesting it.
I feel
I'm
like he
just
would walk away from that. That's what we're saying, bruh. Come on, we're saying he's a good guy. Relatives, father-in-law. No, this is the father-in-law. It's not right. Parents, early life. Only child of Barbara Elizabeth and Ronald Henry Brand. Ronald Henry Brand told story. A strange relationship with his father. Father and mother married in 1969. Separation, he was 6 years old. He was 14. He developed bulimia. Is that right? When he was 16, he left home in a disagreement with his mother's partner. He started using illegal drugs. Made theatrical debut at 15. Brand attended grade school 91. Is celebrity dad. Yeah, they're not talking about it in this article. So I'll just switch it now. Wait, what? I saw an article about car accident. I don't know. This is not very important. It can only get us into like more trouble.
no, it is not. It is not very
If
important.
anybody wants to look into Russell Brand's parents to see how they're doing, you can do that for us. But
Let us know.
I don't know. I just don't feel like he's evil, though. I feel like there
Oh,
are some things we
I'm
could
not
talk
making
about.
any claims about any of that. All
Yeah,
I'm just saying is that it's not so random that he's a big revolutionary now,
I wouldn't be surprised.
selectively discussing surface ideas and popular ideas, having 6+ million subscribers, and because I'm always like, there are a few understandings that if you're really interested in your audience, you would get them across and they would have gotten you banned, basically. Or you do it really smart, but yeah.
That's what it is.
So I'm
He's
just
got
saying,
money and
let
he's
me put
tried
it
to
like
build.
this. Is the
Yeah,
whole idea of truthing or whatever, is it just a business model or is it an honest interest, And is it really like a value in itself or is it just a tool to be used to make money and gain control or gain popularity or whatever you would say? I think that's the main point, no?
yeah. Well, it's hard to say if like these are just right-wing talking points that they're trying to suppress Russell Brand or something like that. But like, for the most point, they're saying that they're getting letters from the British
Oh, that was
government.
the other thing because he was the famous case. I almost forgot, no? Because he got deplatformed for a week or something, no?
At least it seems like he's more than a week. Like they're trying to deplatform him continuously now. And so it was after he's been saying things, and granted, they're surface level to the extent that we're going as deep as possible. But if most people have never even considered this idea, and he's giving it like sort of a, hey, I'm a cool guy who can think that these ideas are okay. He's advocating for people to go that direction instead of the other direction. So that really bothers a lot of people that want him to say, like, you have to believe in what we're saying is true. You have to do what we say is the safe way to live your life. But I mean, there's a lot of things he went through, like Katy Perry's whole thing with buying a coven buying a nunnery, Freudian slip. And I'm trying so hard, but this can be members only, probably. I mean, you can check out the Order of the Nine Angles since we're talking about such horrible things. And the Order of the Nine Angles are a pretty terrifying group out of England, right? That practice human sacrifice in order to even become members of the group. And you'd be like, how little itty bitty is this, kind of like white supremacist, racist like group out of England? And you'd be like, actually not that itty bitty, which is terrifying. It's all over. And they're talking about headquarters here. I don't even see Argentina. Interesting. But you know what I mean? It's actually in a lot of places. And there's people in Canada, and yeah, there's been I think if I go down further, here's one of these freaking dudes who's turned into, I mean, doesn't that look more like something else you've seen, right? Like, it almost looks like Islamic, right?
Yeah, especially with the hat, that's a bit suspicious.
Yeah. The Order of the Nine Angles are they're
I mean,
known
the
for
name itself
attacking.
sounds interesting, but left hand. But what are they What are they believing, or what are they doing?
They think they have got this sort of like fake druidic pre-Christian theology. They think they're like British Anglo supremacists for the most part. Like, people have associated them with the neo-Nazis, but I don't think that's accurate. That's just what Wikipedia is trying to do. But sometimes I'm sure this happened in the 60s. But what they do is they like force people to, well, not force people, but like if you want to join, you don't really have a choice after that point because now you've heard about them. And then you have to sacrifice like two people, I think is the deal. Either someone close to you and someone else, or like two people that are close to you, in order to advance, and then they teach you more magical skills, right? And so they kind of associate it with Aleister Crowley, although some people argue that like it's really, something, I forget who pushed out of it, but it's like, what's his name again? It's established in the Welsh marshes. So I don't know. I don't think they really have the name even of the first people that started the thing or when this happened. But they claim that it's like something that's passed down from pre-Christian pagan traditions, right? It's like that kind of thing. But yeah, and then Gene Splice here is saying sounds like another MK Ultra cult. And I don't disagree exactly, but it's a little bit weirder. It's like a religion kind of, because imagine you're in England in like the 60s, like 60s England. Into pictures.
Just because you mentioned 60s, I mean, I'm going back a bit more. In one of the recent videos, David Ewing also showed something that I hadn't really imagined. People love to talk about climate change and so on, and the different angles, which I'm not going to get into. But then you see pictures from like 1900 England, or probably many other places in Europe, and you see how polluted they are. It's amazing. Like the smokestacks. And this is also the other question, whether this is maybe partially the reason for the vanilla sky, let's say, if it is true, or if there are areas which have maybe you add with factories or something. But in one of the recent videos, we put there quite a few pictures. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And one wouldn't think of it because the places today that are, let's say, already cleaned up, like one could say Vienna or probably London or other cities in Europe, let's say, or in the UK, now they are clean, but 100 years ago, these factories are everywhere. That's also why you have now these art spaces and whatever in former factories, all that kind of stuff. But it's something that I didn't really consider so much that, of course, it has an effect also on the climate if, for example, you're blocking the sun with smoke, because you don't have proper filters in whatever factories
Or
they're
if you're
using.
releasing steam, like you're changing
Right.
the clouds.
If it's a lot, yeah, right. Like these cloud machines. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
If you have like tons of hydroelectric systems releasing lots and lots of steam that actually would affect, people don't. But okay, so the 60s, Britain, people are dancing and they're told that the church is crazy and like you kind of, you know, that there's secret orders and you can't, you know, you're a plebe, you know, you're not able to be like a lord necessarily, but then you find out you can kind of, because there's like this foundling order and you just have to join it. But to join it, you have to keep a secret, and then it's like a Nexium thing. I feel like it's even weirder than, you know, MK Ultra or something like that. And yeah, maybe the government was involved, but at very least, members of government were in the Order of the Nine Angles, and so yeah, they weren't really super into like the British, Christian movement. They were like kind of anti-Christian and they wanted to be pagan. And then eventually, like David Copeland, who was Matt or whatever his name is, converted to Islam, and because he thought that like Zionism had taken over England. So that's why they associated them with the Nazis, I guess, because this one guy became an anti-Zionist. But if it weren't for that, most people probably would never have heard of them because they were just privately going around, and there were members in government, members in police, and everything that had done this. And there was even members that were like, you know, doing this in New Zealand that started the Black Order, right? Which had been found in, you know, political scientists, occult political scientists, but they always associate it with the Nazis for some reason. I don't know why. They shouldn't really. This is just a Wikipedia thing as far as I'm concerned. They just always do this, but it's way weirder, you know what I mean? Because it's really about Satanism and all this other stuff. But these groups, yeah, fascinating blend of Hermeticism, traditional Satanism with some pagan elements. Right, own a dangerous and extreme form of Satanism. They basically want you to break all the rules. You're supposed to be one of the cars with sirens that go through the red lights. You know, you're doing everything opposite of what everyone else is supposed to do because everyone else is normal. That's kind of like subgenius, right? So there's connections to a lot of traditions in this idea of being a special. And yeah, there are definitely like gateways into that which have been found. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, I haven't really figured it out yet, these strange, philosophical concepts, but what I'm mainly wondering about, at least in most cases, again, with these things, how do you found a group? Everyone can found, a group, but which groups get popular, how do you get the clout, how you get to spread? I guess at least usually it takes some resources, to be something that is then impactful or cultural or, all that I'm thinking about now for some reason is the whole idea of individualism and collectivism and how also that as a tool kind of has been used, capitalism against communism and all of that, in these highly polarized ways. Because I guess that's where many Satanists are also coming from, kind of, no? Like, I do it in a different way or something. I haven't...
Right, yeah. Well,
I don't really understand it.
Modern Satanists have nothing to do with Satanism because they're like Anton LaVeyan Satanists. And so, like, they kind of make the distinction also. But self-worship is still, like, a major practice because you're trying to empower yourself as much as possible. And that plays into, like, a lot of the Gnostic tradition. Some people believe you're supposed to escape this world. Right. You're not supposed to be, so a lot of people are thinking, okay, you have to become what you are, which is a god that has been made mortal. You have to lose that mortality and become immortal, right? And become this freed being. So they're practicing magic for that purpose. And then they're also doing things to empower themselves more along the way. So like that's why it really plays into these people that run the world so much. They like groups that will make them more powerful, that they work together to make the world more in their own image again, and it continues to like distort the rest of the world, right? Like that's kind of the plan. Like in the O9A, like there's tons of people that you wouldn't realize are members of it, but it's also, a lot of people in military, like I said, so it's not that big of a deal. And
I mean, I bring it up again, the interesting thing that Douglas Dietrich said, who I still very much hope will interview with you at some point.
Yeah, he said you'll do it, but only for 18 hours. No, I'm just kidding.
That'd be great. No, but he basically claims that Anton LaVey kind of was the secret priest for the whole of the US military or something like that. if I understood him correctly. So that was the official, at that point, religion, I don't know, of their department or the whole thing, or yeah.
Well, a lot of the generals liked Anton LaVey and were friends. And you've probably seen, of course, the photo of Sammy Davis Jr. with Anton LaVey and Michael Aquino, right? You've seen that one?
Maybe,
Sammy Davis, Michael Aquino. Let me just start with that. Boom, 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 boom. There it is. Okay. The more you know. Yeah, so this is a picture of Michael Aquino, who's like a general, and it was in the NSA, and Anton LaVey, who's like, by the way, general and eventually in charge of the Temple of Set, right? Zephyr. And then this is Anton LaVey and then Sammy Davis Jr. Right around the time, I think just before Sammy Davis Jr. starts his Satan or Lucifer TV show that he does.
Actually, can you pull up Sammy Davis Jr.? Because maybe for someone who's not American, I know the name, but
yeah,
I don't
baby.
exactly know what's going on.
Oh, yeah. Okay, he's this really weird character. So he's like half Jewish and half black, and so he was really kind of he was in the Kabbalah and into some pretty interesting like Afro-Caribbean magic and everything like that. But he was in the Rat Pack. He was friends with, the like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, those people, and so he did all those like live shows. He sang the Candyman. You never seen him?
Oh, I mean, that's a whole other thing, of course, with the end. I mean,
The
how
Rat
much?
Pack, dude. He's the black.
Let
the
me
Rat
just
Pack.
ask in a very naive way, how many popular pop and I guess hip hop and whatever blockbuster chart music videos do you have these days with, let's say, very peculiar symbolism and also oftentimes overly, how should I say, gory and so on and explicit?
He's in
So-
this amazing musical called Sweet Charity, which is just like a crazy. I don't want to ruin it for you, but the most important scene I have on an 8mm film over there. It's just this one scene, and it's him doing the Rhythm of Life, and he comes in, and he's this like hippie minister that people follow in 1950s or early 60s, like in New York, right before like the normal hippie movement we think of. It's like the beatnik movement that's happening, because like people don't realize that was already kind of existing to some extent, but it's all combined into this like 60s vibe for 1967. And he's singing about the rhythm of life, and like daddy was a preacher, and you look at him as like Jesus right here with like the halo over his head, which is the tambourine, and his arms over the car. Yeah, there's a bunch of
And
symbolism.
the two pillars, if you want, or a cross.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that he does, and I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that happens.
Okay, I'll have to
Birthing.
watch this. Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
it's like super key. But Sammy Davis Jr., he talked a lot about Satanism, because he made a TV show called, I forget if it was called Satan or Lucifer, and it was just all about, hold on, what's it called? Sammy Davis Satan. I put it up on my channel once, and I think I took it down because I was just like, who cares? Satan show? Movie? What is it called? Poor Devil. Okay. Unsold pilot of a comedy series. That's right. That broadcast on Valentine's Day, 1973. Sammy, a demon in desperate need of a promotion, uses the scanners in hell. The place looks like Mission Control in Houston to watch as Burnett makes an inept attempt to rob the safe in a department store where he works. Sammy decides Burnett is prime picking to be recruited for hell. The devil gives Sammy a chance, but warns that if he fails, he'll be shoveling coal in the furnace for the next 1,000 years. He appears to Burnett later that night, literally zapping his bed, and makes a pitch. 7 years of anything he wants in exchange for his soul. Right? And so it's just all these, he starts making all these shows and talking about Satanism for the point of self-empowerment, right? And, that becomes interesting because Anton LaVey, he's just doing like the honest man's job, right? He's like, you have to be clean, you follow the law, you do what you're supposed to do. He's like Maimonides. Like, he's really just trying to be like a Neoplatonic, he's not that scary, except for he's dressed in a way that's kind of weird at the time. He's literally dressed like a villain from Gunsmoke. But Michael Aquino, on the other hand, like, he's a general, and he's writing a book like Fear Itself. He's writing a book on fear itself. And so in the middle is Sammy Davis Jr., who's like not afraid of weird things, and kind of is maybe he's our little metaphor for earlier, because he's like rejected from his family and from his reality because he's not quite Jewish enough to be like fully treated the same, but he's a celebrity still. And so like no matter what, he's still trying to latch on to magic and to like a magical community and things like that. And
What I was actually more thinking about is that it would just make sense if that is an angle, which I guess I don't know. I mean, but obviously those type of Satanists have a proselytizing aspect. Otherwise, they wouldn't be on TV or whatever, right? And if I have that,
but
of
Michael
course,
wasn't. Michael Aquino was the Satanist from the General, and so he wrote the book Fear Itself, and he Temple
I
of
just want to
Set
say
is so
it would make
dark.
sense also to get allies with entertainers. And there, I think it can be traced back, at least from the 50s or whatever, with popular music, how it continually became, more explicit, how dress codes were changed and so on. So from that angle, and again, considering how full of strange symbolism music videos are since, I guess, at least 20 years, but blatantly now, yeah, or 10 years blatantly, it would just make sense that early on, those individuals would ally themselves with popular entertainers. So that's what I'm thinking.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but also I think it's like in this picture you can see he's like these two are the closer ones, and he's a bit off to the side still. Like there's just like this is the person who he came to see, and this is somebody who's excited to see Sammy Davis Jr. But Michael Aquino is still really he's a kind of a cult that is more dark than Satanism. Not necessarily saying that darkness means evil or something. Like maybe he's more Luciferian or something, but like Temple of Set is about chaos, right? Set is Seth instead of Ma'at. And yeah, writing the book Fear, because we have nothing to fear but fear itself, right? So we had to write the book Fear Itself. That's kind of the idea of like how to actually use psycho warfare. And it was applied during the Strategic Space Initiative, the idea that we had like ultimate power and ultimate fear. That's his contribution in a lot of ways. So there's some interesting connections, I think, like this idea that there are, where do you get your power? Some of these groups are having like we talk about the Skull and Bones, right? Like what do the Skull and Bones have? Dan Vogel, who talks about Mormonism, says that Joseph Smith stole a bunch of Freemasonic sigils and magical talismans, or like at least some particularly important ones that had been brought by King James, and had been brought from King James to America by the Freemasons and brought inland away from New York. And so that was like the safe place, and that's why they had to go to Illinois or like out of Missouri or something like that.
And
Like
you remember that quote or whatever it means, this letter or something that it was by, I forgot, of course, now, some famous US politician, even president, where he said Freemasonry basically is repackaging whatever they brought from Tartaria, whatever that means, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And people always wonder, like, why would someone want to go to the city? But it's like some of these cities had like they were safe because they were inland or something like that, and they brought a bunch of stuff. And before the Chicago fires, you'd have these amazing, mummies, papyrus, like these museums that they had in the middle of Chicago that were away from the ocean, like Paris. They're like, okay, well, this is the new safe haven of the United States. We know that anything, it's the last place that's going to get attacked, so we can keep it in the middle of the United States. So it's brilliant, really. I mean, that they do it that way. You had some other articles. Let me pull up too.
Let's see.
Oh, this isn't really an article, but I just wanted to comment on how cool this is.
Oh, yeah.
These are
So
Down syndrome.
let me just frame it. So I went down the, as it happens, even not using TikTok, but the shorts rabbit hole, and whatever strange things show up. And suddenly, I maybe even had seen them years ago, I'm not exactly sure. They're actually doing a cooking show, which is supremely well edited. Two individuals with, I guess you would call it, what is the politically correct term?
Down syndrome. What is the medical term? It's Down syndrome.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
trisomy 23 or something.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is, of course, is how they interact with each other, and
They're very kind.
the incredible patience and so on, and even someone misunderstanding something. I mean, you can see the one guy on the right sometimes getting a little bit upset or being like, or upset, but never being angry at each other or something like that. And just this basic attitude I'm sometimes also thinking of just like some cats behave, There's a cat, and if it likes you somehow, it's in a good mood. Even you're getting close or touching it, and the cat will just start purring, laying down. So just this idea of how important it is or relevant how you respond to your everyday reality in every moment. Like, what is my attitude? What is my expectation? What is my frame? And I think here, obviously, we can learn a lot from, let's say, other intelligences, yeah, or just other levels of or layers or specialties, let's say, of human intelligence. And you said you think they may even be psychic or something, or more psychic.
Or maybe
than
at least
regular
more
humans.
empathic. It could be that they're just more empathic and like that they, if you experience too much at once, it probably is overwhelming, and it kind of seems like if you're numb, you can think about more things. So the less numb you are, like the more overwhelmed you probably are. And they seem, to be slightly more like sensitive and emotional, but not necessarily in a fragile way. Maybe a little more fragile because societally, if they were to be hunting tigers or something. But in terms of actually interacting, you can have really deep and profound interactions with people that have Down syndrome. And they're rather interesting, and I think I've noticed or observed in friends of mine who have, Down syndrome relatives and things, like they're empathic, like they know when someone's feeling a way and they can just sense it a lot of the time.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I find that interesting. But yeah, the Gaza thing, that wasn't yours. No. How about the Parrot corrected me?
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know how crazy YouTube is with strikes. If you watch it, not strikes, but like copyright claims or something. But anyways, people can check it out. It's just interesting in the terms of studying different types of consciousness. I don't know if maybe some people have seen these videos. It's another of those things which just get shown to you. But again, here it's interesting to see, big thing, how intelligent animals can actually be, and how, especially this one, because able to differentiate and understand color, object definitions, and in this case, correcting his caretaker in terms of what material this is actually made of. Yeah, so.
But
Yeah.
it doesn't actually see the color, right, or something? Like, isn't it? It has to be aware of the key a different way, or
No,
not?
he can determine colors, yeah. And in this case, the question is, what is the wall made of? And he says, oh, the wall is made of rock. The caretaker says, but then the parrot says, no, it's.
Whoa, parrots can see ultraviolet? The heck? No one told me. Parrots can see better. I was always under the impression everyone. See, this is one of those. You always have to unlearn something every day. Every day you have to unlearn something. Oh my God. So part of the way I sleep at night is I try to tell myself that birds are not going to become giant. By the way, I have a thought. If we're going to have birds, can we just bring colorful birds back here? So hear me out. Like, have you seen the Malaysian pigeon? The Malaysian pigeon. Check this out. This is the Malaysian pigeon.
Well, if you would have those in Vienna.
Just get rid of all the other pigeons. Just displace them. Like, if you're talking about like open borders for pigeons, I'm starting to listen because I'd like to see Malaysian pigeons everywhere. Like that. Look at that. It's like Viking. Oh, and Mr. Obvious is colorblind. Sorry. So it's a purple and yellow pigeon. So it's based. I guess it wouldn't really matter to you, but for me, purple and yellow pigeons would
totally
be a big
matter
deal.
to me.
It would be
Totally.
a big deal. I would actually be like, cool.
Because think about it, Vienna now, in many ways, has become also too gray, too many, I want to
gosh,
say,
right?
communist-style blocks and so on, and you have the gray pigeons, right? I guess the regular pigeons, same ones you have, I guess, in Venice a lot. Now there's actually, I think there's not so many anymore. There were more, I guess, 10, 20 years ago, from what I can remember. But then just imagine you have the Mucha style, for example. You know Mucha? Maybe
No, how you spell that?
Mucha.
Oh, like
Yes.
okay.
Yes, just in terms of art style is the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
thing
yeah.
I'm thinking of. And then think of having this type of art style and architecture, and you have
Bring
these
it
colorful,
back.
but you have these colorful pigeons. They would perfectly fit,
It would work perfectly. It's true. Yeah, it's really sad. We were talking about this the other day about how Visigoths, these were the real colors. And if you were on the inside, you were sandblasting away and seeing like restored cathedrals, it wasn't covered in soot. So, at the time in the 19th century, a lot of people like to wear black and like soot and ash because it became like relatively common, But before that, people were all about periwinkle, crimson, mustard, like these really sweet, awesome colors. And yeah, pigeons, man. We could do that. Anyway, if they can see well, that's terrifying because the deal is I'm all right with birds as long as they're small, kind of, and they don't like attack you. But if they're big birds, that's already bad. And if they can see better than you, then that's horrible. And now you're telling me it's a parrot, which has already been my biggest fear because a talking parrot that can see better than you is the most vicious predator. Think about it. It can see in ultraviolet light, and it can just be like, "Mom, help, Mom." It's like Terminator. It's Terminator Parrot. There's nothing worse, I'm pretty sure. I'm scared.
Yeah, that's the natural intelligence imitating voices, not AI,
Yeah, but it also shows it's like how serious could birds have ever got evolved to throw off our sense that they're not human? How uncanny was that valley? Well, we know because we've genetically evolved to have the ability to and kept the ability to sense if something seems human but isn't human. Like that's a major thing that scares humans, So clearly at some point that was how we got killed a lot. Was by thinking something was friendly when it was not a friendly.
Well, that's a very good point, I would say, overall. Yeah, friend foe misidentification or predator misidentification, yeah, can probably cost you your life. It kind of makes sense. That's how a lot of the natural world actually works, I guess, with feigning a certain appearance, but actually being something different. And it's very similar with the whole political sphere, I guess.
What's his name? Craig Church, or is it Craig Venter and George Church has been working on this. What's he's up to in the news? Anything? 4 years ago still. All right, we'll keep waiting. I'll have to hit him up when he's publishing more. Here's that thing that was kind of sad. Lore Lodge, you said you wanted to like know more, and then you're like, I think we did that with Tartaria. Did you? I don't think you did. I think you kind of didn't. Just gonna say. La falsification de l'histoire allemande. All right, so the German history is false.
So I'm not sure if we brought this up before. I just wanted to point out, recently, last week, we had Didier on. He did a first presentation on your channel. There's one other English presentation he did on my channel.
Nice.
Of course, again, also because of many different reasons, because of the detail, it can be, can take some time to fully grasp what's going on. I just wanted to point out that he has a blog. He said to me that some of the things there already are kind of, he would say now outdated, but I'm sure any and all of those ideas are interesting. And again, presenting different books and different theories about certain aspects where, for example, medieval history or something may have been manipulated.
Yeah, I find this pretty interesting. I mean, the more we try to like map out which events are duplicate, the better, I think.
And especially because on the presentation he did with me, he was also showing how so many individuals from the supposed Middle Ages just have identical names and roles in, let's say, around the time of Christ or in 300 or something.
Did I show you Saint Buddha already? Check out Saint Barlaam and Josephat, otherwise known as Bolivar and Bodhisattva, which are the Saint Gautama Buddha, essentially. So, according to legend, an Indian king persecuted the Christian church in his realm after astrologers predicted that his son would someday become a Christian. The king imprisoned the young Prince Josephat, who nevertheless met the hermit Saint Barlaam and converted to Christianity. After much tribulation, the young prince's father accepted the Christian faith, turned over his throne to Josephat, and retired to the desert to become a hermit. Josephat later abdicated and went into seclusion with his old teacher Barlaam, right? And so this is this Christianized version of Siddhartha that was created so they could have Saint Buddha. It was created in the 10th century. And I don't know. I'm pretty sure this is still canon. I forget how this works. Like, sometimes they'll go back and remove saints, and like in the 90s and early 2000s, they try to get rid of a bunch of them. They're like, Saint Christopher's not real, and that made people sad.
Can
They
we
might have
get
missed this one.
any original documentation on what they're claiming here? Because this would be, if it's in 1000, I mean, of course they say Buddhism is thousands of years old, but that's also something I could not verify yet.
Dude, if they're all the same religion, bro, I wouldn't be surprised.
So I'm just saying, because this would be a convenient story to then backdate a historical idea and say, oh, this long time ago there was this communication between religions that were so different, when maybe at that point, like you said, they were the same religion. So, so just to backdate the idea of factionalism, when maybe it hasn't even existed back then. So.
Yeah, actually that makes a decent amount of sense, because the idea that Christianity was, it's not supposed to. When's Buddha supposed to be? Like 500 BC? Let's see.
Long time ago. What is this song? I can still remember.
500 BC, right? So
it's a Madonna song, I think.
But yeah, so I mean, no, but that would make Madonna song. I'm pretty sure that's.
It's Miss American
not
Pie,
Madonna.
I think. Long time ago, I can still remember.
American Pie is John McClane.
Or she sings Bye by Miss.
Don
I don't
McClane.
know.
All right, you just.
But it's still in a Madonna song. I'll
All
look
right,
it
that's
up.
fair. It's actually better than The Saga Begins by Al Yankovic. I don't know if you've ever heard that version.
Melissa says she samples it, so yeah.
The Al Yankovic version is way better. It's like in a galaxy far, far away. Naboo was under an attack.
Oh,
It was a good song.
nice.
I like that one better. Yeah, so the new Codex 140 of Bulvinari.
Can you go to the very front just to see?
This is
who-
from 1966. This book was
Oh,
from.
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
this is like someone taking information from 1864. When you start looking at it, it says it's from David Marshall Lang, University of London. So it's like a studies thing on what he has about it. From 1571, the Doge of Venice presented King Sebastian of Portugal with what was purported to be a bone of the spine of Saint Josephat. Okay, so a Buddhist bone, the Buddha's bone was brought. That's interesting. To Venice, to Rome, essentially. It's interesting.
Are you familiar with the story of Nathan the Wise?
No, Nathan the Wise. Although I do
Yes.
know a wise Nathan.
So, because I'm not sure how mandatory it is. That's something you potentially read in, I guess, Austria or maybe Germany in high school in German. Yeah, it's by Lessing, and I can't really say anything in detail about it. I did read it. But the strange thing here is that you have this interaction basically between the Sultan and a Templar and I guess someone who's Jewish, I think Nathan himself or something like this. So this whole concept of religions communicating with each other. And all that I thought when I read it was like, oh, it seems like they all got along perfectly or could get along perfectly. What was even the deal? Like, who would crusade against whom? That doesn't make any sense. To me at least, yeah. And I'm not even sure if this is. I mean, it's a play, so here it says it's not, based on any true accounts. But that just was an early idea for me in school, where I was like, okay, now are religions now a reason to fight each other or not, or what is actually going on? So yeah. Here it says set in Jerusalem during the Third Crusade. It describes how the wise Jewish merchant Nathan, the enlightened Sultan Saladin, and the initial anonymous Templar bridged their gaps between Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. And again, the question, were there any gaps at that point actually, or just 100 years earlier? Yeah?
But the
It's a
centerpiece
major-
is a ring. He's got a magical ring. Like King James ring, the Ring of Solomon, the thing that got the members only on the Thanksgiving special. What? That magic ring? Crazy.
An heirloom ring with the magical ability to render its owner pleasing in the eyes of God and mankind.
Dog.
Yeah, that's almost like a one ring. That's pretty good. I don't remember the story in detail anymore, but
Oh, that
Just
ring.
thought
It's
of
all
it.
about the ring. There's a magic ring. We gotta know more about like King Solomon magic ring. We gotta know, man. We gotta know. That magic ring is important, clearly. There's a reason why we're not talking about the ring. But somebody's got that ring, clearly. Maybe everybody needs that ring, I think is the deal. So that nobody has the ring, you know? Shouldn't just be one ring. Ooh. Someone's already thought about this. Yeah, there must be. That's got to be the whole thing. Someone, I'm sure Mind and Veil do a Lord of the Rings thing. It's probably going to be all about that ring. That ring is important. Well, okay. Buddhist saints, Russell Brand, graphene tattoos. Who is Bernard Stempel?
Yeah, right. So I'm only bringing this up because maybe once I mentioned it with you, and it was the
Did he
question:
know
oh,
Sammy Davis Jr.?
you
Sorry.
know, is this a conspiracy or not? So I don't know anything about it really. I just wanted to point out, according to Wikipedia, it's not a conspiracy that this guy helped write Mein Kampf,
Oh yeah, he
and I
helped
just
write.
thought
That's
it's
true.
interesting.
That's true. He did,
So
but he was murdered. Also, is important to remember. So he was murdered in the Night of Long Knives, which also is called the Rome Purge, because they got rid of all of like the Pride soldiers. Like, so they had a lot of like homoerotic soldiers that were associated with Rome, and he was
right.
ardently and proudly, out of the closet and was like, "Hey,
And
this is a liberated country," and all this other
and
stuff.
here again, I think this would have been the idea that you had this very liberal, and then again switching back and forth.
Yeah. But the Catholics is interesting because, they were definitely pushing for liberation theology. So I wonder if he was he was the Huronite? Okay, Order of Saint Jerome. So hermit monks, and probably I don't know how close they are. Does anyone know about the Huronites? If they're how close they are to the Jesuits? Iberian Peninsula, religious habit, white tunic.
White tunic?
Yeah, with a brown mantle, on a white tunic. In Toledo, okay. Well, I should know more because, I've been there. I've seen their monastery. I've walked around there. So that's kind of like I wouldn't say it's like their Ohio, but it's in the middle of nowhere, kind of. I mean, Toledo's up in the middle of the center. Nice place, though. Just it kind of just sticks out. You're like, wait, I'm in Toledo now. Crazy. Yeah.
So
I don't know,
just
he definitely
related to
worked.
that, because I don't know too much about it, I just wanted to point it out because it was the question, was there anyone involved in it? And this guy was involved, so that's maybe something, to check
Yeah.
out further. Then we have, I sent it in the links, this was recommended to me, called Rethinking Jewish Mysticism. I guess this is just about the concept of spirituality in Judaism. It's one
Yeah.
of the videos, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Rachel Elior,
There it is.
right? So just something, just about spirituality. And then there is the next one, which is
Well,
interesting.
what is this about rethinking Jewish mysticism?
No, from what I remember now, it's just about, I just took it down or noted it because she's, I guess, talking about the notion of spirituality, and how that relates. And she's also a professor in Jerusalem, just like the next guy is. And what he said was also really interesting. He's talking about the idea of Israel or something. And he actually said on that interview, his name is Shlomo Sand, right? Yeah. And he actually said, I'm quoting him, that how should I say, exactly, it was about the biblical account, basically. About the biblical account. He's also a professor he also is teaching even in Israel, I believe. And he said that he asked his fellow researchers or professors about the biblical account of Israel, and the definition of what does Israel mean, or land of Israel. Even the first individual then who's commenting is kind of attacking him and saying he's a charlatan and so on. But anyhow, what he says is that at the university, he was told that the professors there never spoke about the, let's say, talked about the verification of the biblical occurrence of that state. And he was very surprised, investigated further, and then wrote these books, and yeah, probably made some friends and maybe some not so much. But I think, and this is of course sometimes difficult to see from the outside, that actually many individuals inside Israel have very much, I would say, left-leaning views, right? Or at
Well,
least there are always huge demonstrations.
I want to say most, but
I
I
mean,
guess a
left is
lot of
a
the ones I
catch-all term,
know.
but
No, but a lot of the ones I know are because, like, let's say, like any. Here's the thing, you can say about Israel, like like more than less are veterans, and I think that is a really big deal. The fact that so many of them are veterans is huge, and it really affects the mentality and psyche to be a veteran. And so I don't think anyone really has addressed what it's like for a state, an entire state, to be veterans. I mean, it's not everybody, because there are, hyper religious that are allowed to exempt, and there are some people that have figured out ways of leaving the country. And then, but a lot of people haven't. And then even if they have, it's often been later. There are people that are just hiding out in Europe, for a year before this, that are just trying their best not to have to go back. They're desperately trying to find where they can stay, what job they can do. And they can do anything, right? Like, they're programmers, they're geniuses. And I think also the 23andMe thing is going to be really interesting pretty soon in Israel,
in what
obviously.
way?
I mean, just because.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But that could be interesting, even if I consider, honestly, these tests to be kind of arbitrary in what they show and the definitions they give. But if they are at least consistent, then it would probably show how related they are to people.
Or are not, because if there are people that came
not,
to
yeah.
Israel because they're from Russia and the Soviet Union and they thought this would be a way to get out. Like, there's a lot of people in Russia that tried to escape also. Or people that just, there's a lot of other situations that could have, played out. So people finding out whether or not they were actually even part of this thing that's supposed to be, because it's supposed to be a secular state, but there's still a religious aspect there, because the idea is the state is for the Jewish people, and that might play into certain things as well. The other thing is just Israel. Did you see Slavoj Zizek's talk on Israel recently?
No, not yet. I just want to say one thing without exactly saying it yet right now, but just currently, to give another example, if I'm now, for example, I want to emigrate to Europe, I'm from Africa or something, or many I think actually are from Indonesia, India or something, whatever, yeah. I come across the Austrian border today and I say, oh, I'm what would be the current thing? Maybe Syrian refugee a few years ago or something. It is difficult to verify. It can be accepted, and I just want to say overall, by assuming a new identity, it is possible to gain certain benefits in certain cases. And also this may not only have happened in the past few years, but also before, and that of course again throws the whole thing for a huge loop.
Yeah,
because after one generation you don't know anymore,
Censuses are broken. Yeah, all the metrics are off. That's for sure. But so Zizek did a talk recently, and he's talked about a lot of things. He's the only one I think that you should send this to everybody in Germany, because he's the only guy who's probably allowed to say the things that are being said, essentially, because he sounds like Ludwig von Drake, Donald Duck's cousin from Disney. But he's definitely kind of funny sounding in English, because I'm sure he has Tourette's or something, and that makes people mock. But at the end of the day, what he's saying is so important. He talks about the nationalism, globalism, and how powerful it was to have a nation that was spread out around the world, so everyone is benefited by this, because we're all interacting together, because we all have to work together. Granted, if we're forcing people to segregate and you send them to a ghetto or you send them to a state, it starts to isolate them more and more either way. Even if you give them a state that's powerful, then that isolation starts to play off that people that used to, so he talks about like how important it is. He likes the idea of Israel, but he also likes the idea of Jews living in our countries, right? Like living around the world, like people being integrated more and more. That was his original, when people were talking about like open borders and everything. And so that's funny, because some people make like memes about that and get canceled for saying that, but he's saying it from like a classical communist perspective, that it makes the most sense. And also just
they get canceled for saying what? That they also want
open borders for Israel. Yeah,
open borders. What would that mean, or how do you mean that?
It would just mean anyone can move into Israel, and then Israel's essentially.
Okay, and
But
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, so
honestly,
it's a
the whole
secular
story
state.
logically never made any sense to me how whole thing is set up. If the intention of, keeping peace and making sure people are safe and healthy was an honest intention, I don't see logically, how the things that were done make any sense. But yeah, so. And
Yeah.
also, from what I understand, many individuals actually in many societies who were Jewish or whatever were very well integrated, and yeah, so
Yeah, and so it seems like it's an interesting point he makes that like when we're better, I mean, this is not the only people that are being integrated, and so having other states that are integrated can be
or
beneficial
even
too.
with the current situation, I'm not sure if this is exactly true, but I've been watching many documentaries now, also on, of course, Israel and Palestine, to kind of get some idea of what the official story is and what maybe actual people are saying, and there it was claimed that I believe I hope I'm not getting the years wrong now, but from like 70 to 90 or something, that there was a period of peace and people were able to enjoy life with each other. The borders were not so restricted or they were just open. People were maybe even going to school together and things like that. So it just shows even here, it's obviously possible to have peace and even with all the issues that may have happened before or something. So yeah, I just think it's so sad how it's so often succeeds to artificially then again, create walls and animosities for yeah.
Yeah,
For
it's hard to understand what to do in this situation because like it's been imprinted on everybody.
oh, you muted.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just saying I think
Right.
we need to be able to make the fact that things changed so much from the 80s when people were living together also shows how much like things are created in like the last 10 years. People have put in this media system, but there's also been explosions and things that have happened in Egypt. So I don't know, it does feel like there is a culmination that's coming because they don't want to have a secular state, and that's the only solution is a secular state that can really allow for everyone to live in the secular state. And Israel's unfortunately like, you know, they've actually offered that as an opportunity in the past. Like it's not something that's been, they have offered that in the past. It wasn't something that was acceptable from the extreme Jewish right or the Muslim right. Like neither one of the extremes were really happy with the idea of a secular state. And so it makes it hard when like you're dealing with it. There are great intellectuals and secularists in Israel that have pushed for reform, but it's really hard because you're living
Right.
in a
So
military state that's
asking
about
in a
religion.
simple way, again, could it be that the extremists on both apparent sides, in some way, shape, or form, are funded or supported by the same force in the background to ensure that no proper resolution can be made? Because the little bit that I tried to glean from history now, for example, about the Western Wall, if people just look at the history of it and who was allowed to go there when, what supposed battles or something were fought, and then what decisions were being taken. If you just read it as, I guess, an uninvolved observer, it really sounds like were decisions taken deliberately to again make people angry or give a reason for people to fight. Or I think even recently then some Israeli government officials went there, and they went with armed guards or something like this, where you're like, this is like a setup. Or even I guess in Germany and Austria, I found it very peculiar. The very first day when the whole, big media thing happened and the whole reports came and everyone was going crazy, I guess the next day they had demonstrations in Vienna. There I know for sure, and I think in many different places in Germany too. And then they said, which I couldn't verify, there were some very evil terrorist type claims being made in regards to the quote unquote pro-Palestinian demonstration. And then they said, okay, that's reason enough. We're just going to ban the pro-Palestinian demonstration. And if you look at it from a systems point of view, and I'm sure any police chief or whatever, they are smart enough for that. If you want to de-escalate, you will not ban a demonstration at that moment. You know what I'm saying, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it seems so often that
Well, you
then,
filter out all the peaceable protests are no longer allowed. The only people allowed are violent protesters.
in a way, yeah, or then you have them, they still gather, and then already as police you can like attack them, or not attack, but you force them into a corner and all of that. You maybe even quote unquote
Arrest.
hope they get angry or something, then they can make a big scandal. And so this is something that also in the interviews with David is one of the reasons actually we're doing that, is to just create more understanding of the history, more understanding of the commonalities, so that this apparently quote unquote clash of cultures, that's also, I think, in the media being stirred up. At least that's what I'm sensing, that you have more extremist people, I don't know, attacking someone or... Have you heard these kind of reports? I mean, not in America. This is more in Europe, I guess, now.
No, I haven't heard too much. Is it, you're hearing? Well, I mean, of course, you know, you always see Telegram posts. Europeans are. I do that. I do see that Europeans posting. You know, yeah, some refugee or some girl in France, or yeah, it's always all the time.
And it just seems that this is happening more now. So yeah,
yeah. Or it's just the posts happening more, because it feels like
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. There is more like media coverage on it now, so there's obviously a focus on that topic. I feel like it might
be happening less now than it was 10 years ago, even. Like, it might be that like it was happening more when it was suppressed more. I mean, it might still be happening a lot, but I don't think it's as bad, actually. Like, people were getting acid thrown in their face in 2012 in trains in France, and it got very little coverage. You know, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, things were pretty crazy. And people downplayed it. And now I feel like that's not happening nearly as much. But they're like, oh, there's like someone who's on drugs in France. Look at him. He's standing in the street kicking somebody because he's out of control. And yeah, it happens sometimes still. But you have a huge continent. What do you want?
So all I just want to say is that it's always so difficult if you're not, you know, exactly yourself involved in a situation. And even then you only know what's around you, to really be able to discern what is an actual real thing that's increasing right now, or that's a real issue, and what is just something that gets medially reported 100x right now. Yeah.
If Israel really gets a new font, that's going to be the thing. If you get like if Israel switches to a new font, then you'll know. Because like the thing that really is happening is like
they have a new company management, or what do I know?
No, just like that because history erasure. What you need to make it really hard to read the thing in the past. That's all it really comes down to. And so
they already have a new font, no?
Well, they have a new. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. We're at a point where if people can't live in the same place without it changing around them, fine. Like they changed it around them. That's like bring them out into Muhammad, I think is the metaphor they're using. So they're going to actually try to change, and everyone's, you're right about history in Europe, in Arabia and Europe, you know, experiencing the same thing where countries' names change and languages change and people are still there. So it's even weirder because they haven't forced all of them out yet. You also pulled up, also there's a super new member, Hekmar Jayam. Thank you.
Sweet.
Welcome, dude. Awesome. There's a bunch of members-only content because we talk about things like this. When you watch it live, you can get it live, but sometimes if we go this hard, you never know if it'll ever see the light of day again. So it's good to be a member. Book review, The Strange History of Binding Books in Human Skin. Well, we all saw Hocus Pocus, so... Did you see it dubbed in German? Did you ever see Hocus Pocus?
I don't even know that movie, no.
Man. Really? Bette Midler or something? Is that right? You never saw this one?
No, but has the same hairstyle as the Mad Hatter in the new Alice movies.
Dude, the entire movie she's like, book! And she's like calling for her book. And she's got,
not the Mad Hatter, but she looks like this Queen of Hearts.
If you want to make a kid happy, you get him one of these Trapper Keepers that look like the Hocus Pocus book, made out of human skin. No, not really, but it's supposed to be. The book is supposed to be made out of human skin. That's the Hocus Pocus book. But yeah, why did you bring up Human Flesh books? Oh man, I lost it. I lost the link. I have to go back and find it now.
So I just found it very strange and interesting why someone would do that, and I hadn't known that this was a thing. Anybody would do that. Yeah. And now they're fighting over whether or not the skin should get a burial or not. You know,
wait, really? No. Are you kidding me? They want. That's horrible. Oh wait, is there? Maybe there's some context here. Like, but was this also person skinned for against their will?
If it is true that in the what we would now call Middle Ages or whatever year exactly, many people died. Mm-hmm. well, then I don't know. I mean, either you would do it out of resource reasons if you don't have anything else to bind your book with, or what I was thinking of, in a very evil way, you would use it as a, how should I say, as a matter of showing whom you conquered. Oh, I don't know how to say this in a nice way, yeah? But yeah, that was
That's the nice way?
I thought.
You didn't have a nice way? The nice way was like, I wrote this book, and when I die, I want it bound. I want to be bound in it so that it. Because what's this book about? Is this about the Bible or something? Or is this book?
No, I think also the content are also really strange. 1 second.
Yeah, what's in here? It doesn't say like the human skin log portfolio.
Yeah, it says Destinies of the Soul. That's the
All
other
right.
thing, because it's actually about the human soul, and that's also the reason why they bound it in human flesh, because they said only that is appropriate for such a topic or something along those lines. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like some 09A stuff. That's quite topical. I mean, but I don't know. I mean, all right. If the person wanted it, am I too Californian? Is that too Californian to say? If the person's dad, you're laughing.
It's very Californian.
All right, fair enough.
But the modern one, not the Reagan one.
No, but like if you wanted to, if you were a monk, and when you're gonna die, what are you gonna do? I don't know. It's pretty horrible though. Yeah, I guess if you didn't want it, I agree. Like if you didn't want to be a book, but maybe you did. It's just weird to do. I agree because there's cows.
I'm not giving any judgment or anything. I'm just saying it's very strange that someone would do that, and the content seemed to be interesting as well. But I didn't check it out in detail in this case. But this is just on the.
Well, dude, if someone's put their life and blood into the work of the book, you probably should read it, I guess. I mean, never judge a book by its cover is the other line.
Or is this how they say as an author? Then I put my whole lifeblood in it, and not only my blood, but.
I mean,
that's getting very macabre. I'm sorry.
But yeah, but like, I mean, if you were Kierkegaard, or you were, Van Gogh, like I could see a number of artists when they die saying like, my last will and testament, I want to be bound into a book, right? What if you wanted to be bound into a book, into a Bible, or into your last? I could see that. I could see that happening. I could see somebody wanting that as like, this is what I'm trying to say is this is not as weird to me as wanting to be in an urn made up of ashes. I think ashes is weirder than wanting to be a book cover. Do you disagree? I don't know.
Not necessarily. I just think the whole idea of continued attachment to one's own material remains after one's soul has departed.
Well, no, it's
Not
more like
exactly my
capitalism.
class, but-
It feels like capitalism because
Or maybe I can sell it beforehand. Oh my god.
no, that's not what I mean. I don't mean like that kind of cap. I mean like my definition of capitalism, like Native Americans making a jacket out of buffalo. Like, so what you're doing is like after you die, there's first off, you've taught a bunch of people a bunch of things. You've done as much good as you can in your life, right? Then when you die, you leave a book that is as much as you can hope that will affect people, and you make it as durable as possible. You print it in vellum, which is like sheepskin, and then yeah, maybe even like a bit of you goes into it. Have you ever seen The Red Violin? That movie, The Red Violin's all about that.
No, but
man.
I get your idea, yeah? Why not?
You know why that violin's red, bro? I'll tell you why that violin's red, bro.
Oh my god, no.
You want to watch that movie, probably. But I don't know. I mean, like, printing in skin's not that weird, again, because if it was a sheepskin, everybody's fine with it, right? Vellum? Vellum is the animal skin membrane used in writing material. Look at this stuff. If you are cool, you want to print in vellum, right? This is, some people like canvas, which is made out of cannabis, and that's great. I say vellum. I say vellum is the way to go. I mean, if you have sheepskin membrane, use it. So I think this is probably like, if you're all writing on the pages, you're going to use vellum, right? And isn't that interesting also the Constitution's not on vellum? Because it totally should have been. That would have made it last a lot longer and be like better material. I got questions about that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, book.
So on that theme, there was one other link I sent you called Blood Business. I just showing it because, you know, it's one of those, I guess, mainstream documentaries, but pretty interesting because they basically explain to you how much money they can make with
Food coloring and camera stock footage. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know how much money they made in the documentary, but they mainly talk about the plasma. And just because, I mean, I
1.1
guess
million.
in a chat most people are aware of it, but here they just show, you know, how much of that is being used in manufacturing of drugs. And I think it's this documentary because this is actually reposted. It's originally from this German or French channel. And I think you have a Swiss lady there, and apparently she's dependent on a drug which is derived from human blood plasma. Yeah, and then of course my question would be is why would you
Nice.
have to need such a drug even, you know? Of course no one is interested. And then just how big of a business that is, yeah? And how little of the blood actually is being used in the hospital to save someone. Whereas even here I had heard that if you have the right composition, even something very simple, you could actually substitute the blood you need in the hospital in many cases, if that is correct. But even with the official figures, they only use, I think in this documentary, they say about 20% for actual blood transfusions. And the rest, well, they can do all kinds of fancy things. And I believe either in this yeah, this is the lady, and yeah, and here they also show the other side of it, which is the individuals, because it mainly comes from the US actually, in poor neighborhoods in the US, you know, who are donating, and yeah, then their blood plasma or whatever gets refined to serve the, for whatever reason, I don't know, obese or having other kind of issue, blood pressure issue, women in Switzerland, yeah, who's at least probably has a better health insurance than those Americans, I guess that's safe to say. Yeah, so just again, so yeah,
Importing blood.
strange.
Oh, also Stephen Kellen says maybe excess skin removed post extreme weight loss could be used. That would also make
Nice,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's the most American. That's a generally American answer. But yeah, with the blood business, I think this is interesting because you remember the story with which rock star is it from the Rolling Stones? Blood transfusions. What's his name? Keith Richards, right? Keith Richards had that story where he said that he was getting blood transfusions in Switzerland and then later recanted, said, oh, we were just joking about that. But it's like, well, clearly people do that a lot. And so, you know, get the idea that he probably did get some plasma. And at this point, it'd be
But
crazy
the
not
thing
to.
is just even with regular drug production, I just want to say, I mean,
Looks better now than ever.
how strange of a system is it that you have in this case these poor Americans who maybe can't even properly afford health insurance or whatever they would need, or food or whatever, and then they feel forced to go there to donate blood, you know, every week or 2 times a week
Yeah.
to get a few dollars. And not just that, because they could probably, if they donate that much and really want to do, if they would be paid properly for what profit the drug gives, they could probably even have a decent lifestyle and then maybe get a real job and stop doing that. But of course, they only get paid so little that it's a vicious cycle. And I mean, that's like a type of vampirism, yeah. And it's and this is the surface level thing that anyone can watch in a documentary. I'm not talking about anything, you know, spookier now.
Yeah, well, the Blood Boy thing is interesting because like you have to wonder like how much money really is there in the Blood Boy thing? Because like they've asked the question like, of course people are doing it, but is there enough money to be made in it? And the company keeps getting beaten down, man. And they changed their name. What are they called now? Reopens blood transfusion, back in business. Do they have a new name yet? I think they had to change their name.
They call it ambrosia.
Yeah.
Great. Food of the gods. I mean, what kind of god do you have to be if you need to consume stuff like that? It doesn't make sense to me.
And what's the ex-Mormon guy who's into blood transfusion, like billionaire son's blood? He stopped using his son's blood. This one, yeah. but he now gives his blood to his father still because his own
Just
father is
on a sidetrack,
de-aging.
just so you could have them side by side. Have you perchance seen the, I think, quite decent series called The Foundation?
Oh, I haven't seen it through, but I've seen it's on Apple, right?
It's
So,
I didn't even realize it. I mean, I was aware of Isaac
yeah.
Asimov, but because I never read it, I didn't realize this was actually like at least somewhat based on his books. It's not
Yeah.
exactly, but just because here they always show this genetic dynasty, these three guys who are, genetically the same. And I actually think, at least from what I could glean from the series, it's also again a good study on being able to identify and getting some psychological or some discernment in terms of who is actually controlling what. I'm not going to spoil it now. It gets really revealed through the series. And in a way, it's pretty obvious from the start if you know anything about anything we're discussing here. So yeah, not going to spoil it, but
This
it's
dude is
pretty okay to watch and pretty cool,
this-
pretty well made.
This dude's a good actor, but he's so lucky that like TV online command series and soap operas collided, because otherwise he'd be in like the worst shows. I guess he still is, but like he does his best. I don't know. I still like his acting. But yeah, Foundation. What was the other thing I was looking at? Brian Johnson, because Brian Johnson is like, yeah, he's been trying to do all this study of himself thing. Where is he? We talked a little bit about him at some point. Younger baby face and all this other stuff, and he's talking about like what he's doing, like electrocuting his face, lasering his face, removing like skin layers of his face. This is supposed to be him trying to look younger than 46, but to me he just looks like anybody you've seen.
If you don't, if I think usually the issue is if people do this externally. Oh my God, I have to show you something.
God, he's always naked and stuff. He's like, look at me.
Oh, I think I showed you this one before, but it's always good. Yeah.
I feel like the transhumanism thing, I get why people are worried about it, because some of these people become like kind of scary, obsessed with not dying or something. This doesn't seem like it's working, unless it's just he's just trying to figure. He's investing all of his money into making himself into a famous person, because he's trying to make himself famous by having everyone study what he's doing. Like, so his life is becoming downloadable.
I'm making myself
routines.
a public lab rat. That's a great idea.
A public
so
lab rat.
my reply to all of that, I think I brought it up once before. The very last link I just sent you in the private chat.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's low resolution, but I think you can still tell. This is a woman who's supposedly 70 years old, and
Black don't crack. And is she by the Fountain of Youth in Florida? She live in Florida.
That was so incredibly racist of you to say, even though it's a positive thing, and I can't necessarily say I disagree. So here, this woman is 70 years old, and this is a simple example. She's just doing raw vegan stuff, her own gardening, nice. And also you see her husband then next to her, and he looks just different, let's say. So what I never get with the whole transhumanist thing is, why do I want to go a nanobot route or a I don't know, blood-based, this is almost like blood magic route, or why do I want to go a plastic
Look at all these poor
route?
vegetables that had to die to make all these juices, though.
Of course, this is exactly true, but it just seems to me that anything that people do, which is, supporting their whole system and their natural organism, instead of trying to allopathically fix stuff or cyberpunk style add chips or something, just seems to yield better results on average, at least on quality of life. Also overall on life extension, it seems. But I mean, I don't know what they do behind closed doors. Is any of
he's
this
eating
stuff
vegetables?
really
Look
works,
at that. He's got some vegetables. He eats some vegetables. That's the thing. Like, he's doing his vegetables, but then he's also lasering his face
maybe only
off.
on camera.
No, because his whole life is on camera. That's the thing. He's turned himself into like a full-on lab rat, so he's always on camera. He's got to eat. Look at this. He's got his berries. He's got some sort of weird guacamole-looking dip that probably has cacao in it, and then he's got this like salad thing. He's doing it, and this is just like lightly tossed or something. So, it seems like pretty similar, but how far can that go?
Yeah, I think that's a good comment. Her bidet water is radium.
That's got to be. That's my first question. I was like, is she in Florida? Does she have radium? That's because like. Oh, we gotta find out if that's
Radium
the case.
X was a thing once, right? So.
Yeah, I was at the Quackery Science Museum. I don't know if I can find the pictures of it online. Museum of Quackery in the Science Museum, and it's just literally all the coolest stuff. It's all the real stuff. They've got like mind reading helmets. They have literally Wilhelm Reich's orgone chamber. Can I find that if I just type in orgone?
Great. So they put everything that people should really check out closer in one place.
Yeah, it's all in one place, but it says
That's nice.
quack. It says quackery, which is pretty interesting,
Quack,
right?
quack.
But it's like literally the actual freaking orgone chamber. Like it's all set up and it's all ready to go. And I mean, I found that pretty interesting that everything was ready at the quackery section. Like this is what people used to
But you
believe
could
in
actually,
before
could you actually
modern
try
medicine.
it there? Could you try it there? Or
The only thing you could try was they had like a thing you could sit on that shook the chair a lot. Like you sat in the chair because like Edison apparently liked to sit and Kellogg liked to sit in a shaking chair and thought that that was good for you. So they're like, look, shaking is not necessarily good for you. Well, I don't know about that, by the way. Shaking might be good for you.
yeah, but also that's Edison. So what am I supposed to say now?
Well, and Kellogg was a eugenicist.
Oh, Kellogg, great.
Yeah, like it's even worse, honestly. But the mind reading helmet, you could put it on your head, but it wasn't turned on properly, which is like, here's the, you put this thing on your head and it has these wires that comes down to this box, and then this box is supposed to print stuff out, reading your signals, right? Okay, well, this is essentially the same thing as like the BCI ganglion, right? It's
I'm like,
literally,
wait, it took 100 years.
it's this, what this does is it has a clock that reads the signals in your brain. Where's the helmet part?
I even saw one of
Boom.
those at a
Boom,
hacker
boom, boom.
conference like
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago, yeah.
Right, yeah, this is nothing new. You can't be having the stash on while I'm at work. Oh, yeah, I gotta get careful with that, and you gotta be careful with yours. I don't know. I every time I shave, I feel bad now, because I look at Raph and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? It's just, get that mustache back. All right, but also these things, the electrical thing. Okay, so this one, I have one of these. They touch you with the electrical thing. I got a new one though, because they sell them now. They're like cosmetic electric face wand, microcurrent facial. I got to be very careful. I'm gonna close my window here just for a second, just in case it shows the other kind of thing. All right. Here you go. Here's so they electrocute your face with the thing, and they're like, "Yep, this is good for you now. This is here. It gets rid of wrinkles and it does all this cool stuff." And so, that's a thing that exists.
Oh yeah,
still.
sure. I mean, with electricity, you can do lots of things. There's even a device called DENAS. Let's see if I find it quickly. Yes.
Denas machine.
Yes. So what this does, of course, not making any claims or anything here. This is using simple electric current, like low electric current, and it's pulsing in certain ways. It has like hundreds of settings or something. And at least from what I heard from some friends that used it is for certain cases, it's almost like giving a signal to your body. I see it almost like programming your body. Yeah?
This will keep the reptilians away. Guaranteed to keep the clockwork goblins off of your spine.
Don't know about that, but using for things like blood pressure and so on. So,
okay.
So electrotherapy certainly is a thing and definitely works, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
And overall, the electric current in the body is one of the most relevant things overall. Oh, nice. You got the museum.
I just like the thing in the Museum of Crackery. They also had where was it? Was that the radium section? They had the radium water and all this other stuff. Radium energy drinks, There's the radium emanator and all that other stuff. They had all the cool things you'd ever want, like set up there and ready.
Just as we're on the topic of strange substances, you probably already looked into red mercury? I only picked it up. I don't remember all the details now anymore. But it is supposedly some of those,
There's a big outbreak of fake red
Potentially
mercury, and most people think the whole thing is a fake.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, getting schooled right away. That's good. If it's in the first sentence,
That's how you know. That's how you know it's real. No, it's a real fake, as YouTube says. It's fake. But no, the idea that there's was it supposed to have radiation in it or something? This is the kyber crystal from the lightsaber, right? That's the idea. Red mercury. I think it's also it's like basically red kryptonite. That's what that is. Yeah. I don't know much about red mercury yet.
I had picked it somewhere else, but it's up somewhere else, but it's something to look into, I think.
I've heard people talk about it back and forth. Some people say it was like Chinese medicine magic. Other people say it was like really legitimately made from like weird, like nuclear site waste, and so that had some interesting thing to it. I've seen things sold from China, and people are like, "Oh, this is dangerous because it has radiation in it." Wouldn't recommend on air that people, buy radioactive
Oh no, I wasn't
material.
saying that at all.
Yeah, but like, who's to say it is or isn't, right? It could also just be that's because they could also just fake it, and that's the point. Is like, since nobody knows exactly what you're looking for, it might be, you have to make sure it is what it is, and I don't know what it is, so it makes it harder.
Or how to test to make sure it is what it is. I don't know. So I picked it up elsewhere. Okay, so last things. Yeah, one is just
Did you
if you're in
Harriet
the private.
Tubman?
Huh?
Harriet Tubman? Did you Harriet Tubman?
Oh, Harriet Tubman. Oh, just because it said Underground Railroad, I was like, what is this even? What is going on here? Yeah, maybe you know something about it. I only know her from this really cool comedy skit. My computer just became self-aware by Trevor Scott. We've done that before.
That's the only way you know about Harriet Tubman?
That's the only way I knew about her, because I'm not American. So, what's going on with the Underground Railroad?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it. I did some videos about it a long time ago. There actually are literal underground tunnels and things, but it's not everything. But there were literally underground and basements and ways that people could sneak out of people's houses, and they could get them through into sewage systems, or like the underground of cities, because so many cities are built on viaducts, and like, so we should do another deep dive with Biggs, because Biggs has been really into viaducts. I'm sure he's got more information than ever from the South on situations that were literal underground. But the Underground Railroad, they'll tell you in school in America, didn't mean a literal underground railroad. What they're saying is that that's the metaphor for sneaking slaves at night through houses that were pro-free, pro-emancipation. And so, slaves would go to Canada through these routes, right? They would get, and even through New York and everything else like that. But it was also through Ohio, and like there were states where they were not slave states, but once they got into those slave states, they still weren't free, because there were laws that said that you could be returned to your slave state. So you had to keep going. And if someone was, at that point, that high north, you might also run into people that were willing to, bounty hunt for you to sell you back to your slave owners. So there were groups, and Harriet Tubman is kind of like the American civil religion version of the Saint Buddha, because she goes and returns and continually helps freeing the slaves, going back along the way. And there's a song, because slaves had to sing while they were working, to tell the stories or secret messages. They told us in school this, right? This is in like 3rd grade elementary public school, like the least oppressive school I ever went to, saying, Harriet Tubman, the follow the drinking gourd, right? Follow the drinking gourd, follow the drinking gourd. The old man is a-waiting to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd, which is like the Big Dipper. And so if you go towards the Big Dipper, then you'll get to the river, and at the river you'll find the old man, and the old man will take you. And so they would have these songs that they would sing in certain areas, and you knew what to do to go to certain places, right? And so that's what they're telling public school kids.
Yeah, cool story.
But still, the idea of the secret messages that the slaves are having secret messages, that there are already more scientists that exist in slave state in America, and Masons too, that are partial to.
Also, just interesting undercurrent, the idea that quote unquote the slaves, I guess usually black slaves in this case, no, or only black slaves, right?
So no, not necessarily only black slaves. So because you also have black slave owners in Louisiana, and you have white indentured servants who are essentially slaves, like Andrew Johnson, right? So you have people that are slaves essentially, and especially in the Caribbean area, it's less obvious. Places like Virginia, it's like white people. It's difficult for white people to be slaves at a certain point, but there's still, there still are indentured servants, and it does get to a point where most people can be indentured servants.
Interesting that they use astrology at all. Astronomy. Astronomy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, because they're looking, because you're outside, and
of course,
you have
makes sense. Yeah, sure. Sure,
right?
sure.
Like if you're completely disconnected from everybody because you're a slave at that point, you're not allowed to write anything really at that point, you know. And it did get worse and worse, right? Like it did get to a point where they called it a peculiar institution in America for a reason because it was really dehumanizing in a way that it hadn't been in other countries before. Like that did get to a serious issue, and not in every circumstance, but in Virginia particularly, like the way the law was handled, that if you were born of a free man, but your mother was a slave, you became a slave. That was an inversion of the Roman law, which had always, and everywhere else, and even in Louisiana, had been you inherit your mother's, you inherit your father's privilege. So if your father's noble or sovereign, then you inherit his nobility or sovereignty, and had nothing to do with your skin color. So most of the United States was built on those kinds of ideals, and it was just really in Virginia that this spread, is this idea of race, and particularly places that had English influence. But you have to understand how small English influence was, because the Dutch were so important, the Germans were so important. German only lost by 2 votes as the official
Right, I read
language.
that once. It was like, that's too
Yeah.
hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah, so like it's English is a very
What year was that? Do you remember when
it's
they
like
decided on that?
1790s or something like that. I forget, 1791 or before. They had several votes. There was one on whether or not they wanted to have the conference in French, German, or English. It ended up being in English, but like they wanted it to be in French, and not everyone spoke French. And German, everyone spoke German, but English seemed like the right language to do it in, or something like that, because even the Germans spoke English. And they're like, okay, if we all speak it, that's what we'll do. And then it just continued. Like they were like, but people are still speaking German in Pennsylvania. They're still speaking Pennsylvanian Dutch.
Right.
Like, and they're like, well, what do we
There's
do about
really
that?
cool documentaries on that too, where you're like, oh, this is curious, yes? Mhm.
Yeah, but like the fact is, it used to be 100%, and then they like have weaned it down to like 10%, 20%. It's not like everybody speaks it now, right? Like so. That's same thing with Louisiana. Like they went into Louisiana. It was really the IRS that did a lot of effort to destroy the sovereignty of the Cajuns and Acadians living in Louisiana in the 20s and 30s, and they were chased
Well,
out
again,
at first.
taxation, yeah. Mhm.
But they were chased out at first because they were afraid when they got in there. Like, this is not. We do not know how to like deal with this territory, and it took a long time for them to really like take over Louisiana, but it had to do with the mafia, because the mafia started in Louisiana, not in New York, right? It started in New Orleans Bay and spread out from there. So the biggest infrastructure during the United States chaos and collapse over 3 or 4 different governments, right? Because you have the British government, all of these colonial powers. The 1776, 1791's a whole new federalist government. You have the 1812 government reestablishment, and then by 1865, you have a federalist government that takes power, that completely erases whatever America was before that. So it's just so many times over, that yeah.
And I only wish we could know how many times then, they redacted and backdated the records, yeah.
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 I think this is the one you were trying to pull up, the Unterkon. Let me see if I can translate that to English.
This is just because it's related to the whole underground thing. Just another tidbit for you to check out at some point, that, surprise, surprise, also below Cologne, it's full of tunnels. You see below Cologne Central Station, I guess, I'm not sure if they were doing constructions recently or something, but I just wanted to bring it up because, again, secret tunnels under Cologne Central Station, if you scroll down a bit more. Or maybe Andreas just left the premises, and he's here. So anyhow, just one more example of secret tunnels under, in this case, also very grandiose old type train stations, as you can see here. Catacombs. Tunnels, over 1,000 kilometers.
1,000 kilometers of tunnels. That's crazy. Under Cologne alone.
Yeah, so just more in terms of, underground world. And then I think very last thing I got today, unfortunately, I believe this is only on Odyssey, so I'm not sure how well this goes with the translations. I sent it again. Oh no, I didn't. I sent something else. 1 second. It's Operation Wunderland. Let's see. Pneumatic travel.
The Hyperloop thing I keep thinking of, right? Like this idea. Yeah, hold on, I'll pull up the thing here. German Operation Wunderland.
So this is something really interesting. This is again a public television documentary released in 2008. So it's also very kind of them, like 60 years later. They talk about what happened after
Right.
the Second World War, and I never really looked into it. You only sometimes hear about some famous people that did economic reforms in Germany. Also here, of course, what Michelle Gibson loves to point out, the whole partition, of course, with East Germany. People are familiar with this, yeah, but always creating these polarizations. Here it's mainly about basically teaching West Germany how to do capitalism. And yeah, it's just very interesting to see that. And of
Wow.
course, also which people they put forward and claimed, oh, they made the big reforms, or even, I think they even mentioned it in the documentary, because then it was the Wirtschaftswunder, the economic miracle of Germany. And I think they even admit here and basically say, well, it was our deliberate economic policy to make sure they get stuffed in a way, of course.
Western Germans with the
So-
hamburgers. Yes, yes.
Of course. And of course, because if it is true what they say here, that after the Second World War, America was depleted in a way also. So they were very happy to have more consumers, So kind of interesting.
What's that scene in Goodbye Lenin where she's working? Yeah, she's working at Burger King. It's like, how did they do it? How did they take the perfect German generation and turn them into, thank you for coming to Burger King. The Burger King. Yeah, it's pretty sad that they did that. I don't know. It's pretty brutal. I do wonder about the pneumatic tubes, though, because they could still be like, oh, great, now we could just set up our underground system. We'll have people traveling underground. You won't even notice it. It'll be chill. It'll get rid of traffic. People will be stoked.
Well, maybe already you don't notice it. Isn't that the whole point, no?
Yeah, exactly. It's the boring company for a reason. It's boring. You don't need to know. Yeah, it's weird what they did in
Boring.
Germany, man. Trying to teach Germany to be, Western, and like the difference, because you can see Eastern Germany versus Western Germany were like so dynamic in their respects and like competitive in a sense. And like, well, we're gonna
And
make the
what's-
world a better place.
Maybe one thing I can say from people I spoke to and the feedback I got is that, let's just say, with any potentially false media reporting and so on, citizens from the former East Germany were oftentimes a lot more wary and quicker to consider if something could be propaganda than West Germany, interestingly enough. So those that got induced into, I guess, American capitalism were more trusting maybe in the state media, maybe because it's more diverse, whatever the reason is be, or maybe because there's more material wealth. Maybe that's why it's true, I don't know. Than East Germans who were already aware that, or already before maybe were laughing at the newspaper headlines, and had a different culture. So I find also that it's very interesting how, depending on how you're brought up or what culture you're used to, you are more or less wary, let's say, of propaganda proposed by big companies or government.
The Star Wars record hologram is cool. I do like holograms. People should print lasers on vinyl more. We should all have holograms, laser holograms. If you move around the record, you get to watch these things kind of just spin there and stay there. And if you move, you see them from different angles. It's great.
That's sweet.
That's pretty sweet. Well, yeah. Do you have anything else you wanted to share? I was going to make sure people go to Act Like You Know 26 also.
Yeah, I think we're through for today. Thanks everyone for sticking with us or with me through the scatteredness. But
That's
I
good.
think some things are interesting. Yeah, here, I guess, best thing to check out first, as we said, is just Andreas's interviews. There's also playlists where even on home you have the playlist with David. So if anyone wants to check it out, kindly do. And yeah, I guess that's that.
Yeah. Pretty sweet. Make sure you subscribe to Act Like You Know. He's actually grown in subscribers, which is great. So hopefully you can monetize. Are you monetized yet?
No, and I don't think I'll do that because I don't want to just oh sorry, will be I'm not gonna say anything. Everyone subscribe to Xirtus, then you have no ads, right?
Yes, I think that's how that works.
I
Yeah.
hope so, no? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yes.
But
So
the
that's
thing is,
to do.
you still have ads anyway because YouTube sets it up that they just that you sign something that they can just put video ads in front of your videos no
Oh
matter
my
what.
God.
Yeah, so that's
Oh
why
my
you
God.
should get something from it because there's no way out of them showing people ads unless they're members.
That's interesting because so far I didn't notice any ads on my videos, honestly. I don't know how that works.
You might just be lucky. I don't know. Sometimes I think they
maybe for
decide
now.
when they want to. Also, if
When
you're getting
it's-
enough views, they'll just be
Yeah,
like,
yeah, probably. You're
Yeah.
popular enough that we can monetize you. Yes, yes.
yeah, they'll take money if they can. They made you sign a thing. But all right, well, everybody, thank you for being here, and then we'll do Wednesday Ultra a little bit later tonight, so that'll be cool. And yeah, well,
Thanks
see you
everyone for joining. Subscribe to Xirtus.
please subscribe, like, and subscribe, and share. Peace. And also his channel.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarian.
Recent Tartarian. Recent Tartarian. Tartarian. Recent Tartarian. Recent Tartarian.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarian.